Welcome to the Startup Sessions, the number one web show and podcast for trusting your gut, breaking the rules, and starting something meaningful. Featuring in-depth interviews with acclaimed creative entrepreneurs that have succeeded at building their own remarkable businesses. In the spirit of my zest for sneaking in as much adventure as possible, my wife and I are headed to Vancouver, British Columbia to run our 10th half marathon together, and it's going to be my wife's first visit to Western Canada, so I'm pretty excited about going up there and showing her the ropes for a few days. I used to go up there quite a bit for work when I had my corporate job, and Vancouver is just one of my very favorite cities. It's so beautiful. There's water, there's towering mountains, there's great food. It's just such a great place to go. But it's expensive. And I recently heard that Vancouver is one of the most, actually I heard that it's the most expensive city in North America. It just passed Manhattan. So we won't be buying any real estate while we're up there most likely. And while I'm dishing out facts, I'll mention that we're also going to go over to Vancouver Island, which is an island that's 290 miles long. It's apparently the world's 43rd largest island. And we're going to take a ferry over there, which that's kind of cool that you can just drive a car up onto a big boat and head out across the water. And we're going to visit a friend in Nanaimo and another friend in Victoria, which is the capital of British Columbia, before heading back to Portland. So that's my little adventure that's coming up this week that I'm kind of excited about. But enough about that. Let's get into my guest this week. I have Catriona Pollard with me today, and she's the author of a relatively new book called From Unknown to Expert. And Catriona is from Sydney, another beautiful city, so I'm told. And we're going to be talking about declaring your expertise and learning how to talk about it. And this is just such an important thing, especially for newer entrepreneurs or people that are thinking about launching their ideas. And we're going to discuss the importance of actively building trust in your community, and also how to get started with even building a community in the first place. And probably most important, Catriona is going to share how to position yourself as an expert in a way that feels authentic and real. This is so important because if you're not enjoying this process, it's just going to feel bad. So it's important to do this in a way that you're going to feel good about and that you're going to enjoy. And if you're guilty of playing small and not claiming your role as an expert, because we're all experts at something, then you're going to love this episode. And as a little teaser here, Catriona is going to share her amazing story of being an introvert and the moment in her life when she realized that staying behind the scenes was no longer working for her. And this is powerful. You're not going to want to miss it. So all this is coming to you right now on episode 48 of the Startup Sessions. Hello, my guest today is all about social media and PR and bringing these elements together to create results for entrepreneurs and businesses. I'm speaking with Catriona Pollard from Sydney, Australia. Welcome to the show, Catriona.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. I'm really excited. You're the first guest that I've had on the show from Australia, and I just love how technology allows us to be together and have my audience hear about the important things that you have to say.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Technology is it's magic.
It certainly is. All right, so here's the deal. Catriona is the founder of a company called CP Communications. And from what I understand, it's one of Australia's most respected and innovative PR and media agencies. And most recently, Catriona has authored a new book called From Unknown to Expert. I love that title. And this is a hot topic. A lot of the clients that I work with are, small or medium businesses, and they don't necessarily see themselves as experts yet when I think they could. So I'm fascinated by the title of your book. I guess let's start with this. I've got a question for you right out of the chute that's I've been thinking about preparing for this interview. And, it seems that oftentimes it's not the most talented business people that get recognized and have the most business. It's the ones that position themselves correctly. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that. I think that what people do is in their businesses, they actually have expertise and they have stories to tell. And like we all have experience and things that we've learned throughout our careers, building our businesses, that absolutely should be shared. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, so many of us, and I absolutely am included in this right at the very beginning, which is one of the reasons why I wrote this book, is we think, well, I don't know enough as the next person, or my stories aren't big enough or unimportant enough, and I have all these self-limiting ones, what I know. So therefore, I actually won't say anything. I won't actually pitch any stories to the media, or I won't actually get on social media, and I won't do any sharing. And what happens is those people don't get to tell their stories. But the people who go, you know what, I'm going to stand in my power, I'm going to stand in the spotlight, they're the people who actually get to tell their stories. And so what I'm saying to people is that we all have valid stories. We all have experience that should be shared that will help other people in some way when we do it. So sometimes we just got to get ourselves out of the way and just go and do it.
That's great. That's great. I love that. And there's more to that I want to dig into here today. But maybe I thought another good thing, another good way for us to start out that might give people a good way to think about this is, can you do a comparison for two businesses? And let's just say, there's two, people doing the same thing in business. Let's say, for example, they're relationship consultants, right?
Yeah.
And so describe what one business might look like that the person's not recognized as an expert compared to the other business. Two businesses doing the exact same thing, and the other person has, they're recognized for their expertise. They position themselves in their industry as being an expert. So give us an idea of what those two scenarios would look like and feel like.
Yeah. So building your role as an expert is all about building your reputation, your credibility, and your profile. Mm-hmm. And so we all know that people do business with people and organizations that they trust. And so what you're doing when you're building your role as an expert within your industry or your community or the space that you're in is that you're building that trust with other people, and you're building your reputation and therefore your profile. And so what happens for those businesses that actually actively take that step and take action as opposed to just wishing that it would happen is that they start getting clients and customers come to them. So they don't have to go out and find them and seek them and do a million and because what they're doing is they're actually building the reasons why somebody should come and do business with you. So you're building that reputation, and you're actually you're sharing your expertise and your knowledge so that people go, you know what, I think I'm needing a relationships coach now, or I think I need some help in that area. I read about that person, or I heard that person speak, or I think I might trust that person because they shared something that actually made me feel something, or I relate to them and I have an emotional connection to them, so therefore I'm going to pick up the phone or I'm going to email them. That's the person I'm going to go to. Whereas that person that did none of that work and didn't share any of their expertise, didn't get out there, share their stories, make those emotional connections with people, they're not going to find that people are going to connect with them.
Yeah. Okay. That's perfect. That's great. That gives us a good description of really, if you're not positioning yourself as an expert, you're making life a whole lot harder on yourself. Whether
so much harder.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, so tell us a bit about how did the book From Unknown to Expert come about?
So I have been doing PR for about 20 years, and so my background is putting other people in the spotlight. So that's what I do. That's what my profession is. And I'm one of those people that doesn't crave the spotlight. I have a very introverted side to my personality. So when I started my business, I left a really great corporate role and had absolutely nothing, had no clients, I didn't even have a computer. I had to borrow a computer. I just set up in my sunroom in my rented apartment and just went, you know what, I'm going to give this a go. And then I realized that I needed to actually start building my role as an expert. It took me a while to figure that out. And then I had to go through all of that stuff that I'm talking about now. I had to deal with limiting I had with the fact that why would I be an expert when there's so many other people that know or seem to be louder than me and seem to be out there a lot? So it's my personal experience around how I actually shifted from being in the shadows, being behind the scenes, trying to figure out how I was going to build this business that I so wanted to build and actually stand into the spotlight, and build my role as an expert, but do it in my own personal way. It wasn't about being loud. It wasn't about getting out there and being rah-rah. It was doing it in a really heartfelt way because that actually suited me. It was about sharing my expertise to help other people grow their businesses. And the result of that was that my business just flourished because I was doing it in a really authentic way to myself. And the book is how I've actually done it for myself and the systems to be able to get other people to do it as well for themselves.
Okay, great. I'm going to make sure that I link up the book here on the show notes for this episode. The book is titled From Unknown to Expert. Because as someone who's just finished my first year as an entrepreneur in business for myself, I mean, this is really front and center for me right now. So I'm excited to look into this more too. I think there's probably a lot of people that are, in your shoes where you were just, not that long ago, where you were, trying to find your voice and figure out how do I position myself as an expert in a way that feels good and feels like you. What did you do, or what was the mindset that you got into where you finally said, okay, I'm going to become an expert, but I'm going to do this my way. I'm not going to be the loud rah-rah person. I'm going to do it in a way that feels congruent so that I don't feel this internal conflict about, positioning myself as an expert.
I think the really important thing to do is actually think about what you enjoy doing. Because if you start going out and putting yourself in situations where you're hating it and you're getting exhausted, and you're just thinking, why am I doing this? You're just going to hate it. There's no point in having a business. Business is hard. There's no point in actually hating it as well. We've got to love what we do.
Yeah.
And I think what I started doing was very, very early on is I know that one of my strengths is one-on-one relationships, so developing connections with people and actually being the connector of other people. So what I did was do some work on my personal branding, like who am I, what do I stand for, what are my service offerings, how do I talk about what I do. And then what I did was started very, very beginning. I went out and started networking. So I found networking groups. And I know some people find networking really challenging because you're walking into a room full of strangers. But it's a perfect place to start to build your role as an expert, because what you're doing is you're enabling people to become your referrers, to become your connectors so that they can actually refer work to you because they know who you are, they have a connection with you. So what I did was go out and I just networked like 3 or 4 times a week with different networks. And then I actually created my own network. So I would have a lunch once a month and I'd invite the interesting people that I met through the month and catch up with them and connect them with other people. So I started really building my role as this person within the business community in Sydney that actually was an expert in what I was doing because I was demonstrating it as well. So I just kind of started somewhere. I just started, and I think that's the thing that I talk about in the book the entire time is taking action. So we might want to be known as an expert. We might want to build our business, but we've got to get off the couch and we've got to go do it. Do you know what I mean? Like you can't just wish for something. You've got to make it happen.
Yes, that's a great, it's a valid point. I just love how simple that is. It's not easy, but it's simple to take that next step and move forward and establish yourself. I just recently, because of doing just what you said, networking in the local community, I was invited to speak at a conference There's no way I would have got invited to speak at a conference if I wouldn't have taken the time to network with someone who knew someone else that was looking for a speaker like I had positioned myself. So I love that you just said that, because that's been my personal experience literally like just in the last month.
That's great. It's
cool.
Perfect.
All right. So I'm always trying to think of questions from the perspective of my audience. And a lot of the people that I work with are newer in business, or maybe they're still in their job, but they've started a side business. What would you say to the person who thinks or says, you know what, I'm just too new to be a recognized expert. I need to gain a little more experience first before I mess with all that positioning myself as an expert stuff?
Look, I just think that there's just completely different levels of expertise. So say, for example, one of my clients, I work with a major university in Australia, and I position professors as experts, like they're experts. So we all know professors have studied for a million years, they're all experts. But believe it or not, I still have to convince them that you know what you're talking about, and I wouldn't have pitched you to this journalist if I didn't think that you knew what you were talking about. So everybody has these self-limiting beliefs. Like we all have blocks around whether we're good enough or whether we know enough. And so I think that you don't have to go out there and be that expert that's on like the morning shows. You can be that expert, which you just beautifully mentioned then, that expert that walks into a room and starts sharing some of their knowledge with some other people. And you can expert might get up on stage and just do like a breakfast seminar to 15 people. It doesn't have to be massive. It can just be the smallest thing of having one conversation with one person about your expertise, which then you just never know where it's going to lead. It's just taking that step. And we all have knowledge that should be shared. So who are you not to share it?
Yeah, I love that. And you know what? If you're in a business that you love and that you're enjoying, it should be very natural to talk about that. And
Absolutely.
I think, like you said, finding your sweet spot, finding that platform where you can, whether it's one-to-one or one to small groups or wherever you feel comfortable, that's a great place to start.
Yeah, definitely. And you'll build from there. Absolutely build from there. When I started networking, that first networking function that I walked into, I was petrified. And now I just did a TEDx talk. I was TED, and it was 500 people, live streamed to 200,000 people. It's going on the TEDx website. Like, there's no way that if somebody had said that to me when I first walked into that first networking group, that this was going to happen, I would have gone, "Are you crazy?" But do you know what I mean? It just builds over time, and it's just it's a matter of saying yes to opportunities and actually making things happen.
Yeah. I love that. So this is something I just thought of randomly, but would you say that being a recognized expert makes it easier for you to connect with, other well-known experts?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So what you're doing is you're building influence.
Yeah.
So over time, you're becoming an influencer. So, when I first started, there's no way that I would have been considered an influencer. Whereas now in Australia, among, large numbers of people and groups of people within the business sector. And so what that enables me to do is be able to actually start influencing people who are even more influencers than I am.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. But having said that, on social media, what is so amazing about social media in terms of building your role as an expert is that you have access to these influencers. There are people who tweet me every day that I do not know that actually have actively wanted to build a relationship with me. So they tweet me, they retweet me, they reply, and so they start becoming into my area of, oh, who are they? Oh, they're interesting. They're really lovely people. because they're sharing my stuff. And so they're so clever because I start retweeting their tweets. I start, liking their posts. So very, very way of actually connecting with influencers by using social media. And you do not have to be a high-profile person to do that. You just have to be clever and genuine.
Yeah, I love that. So you're not going to be immediately labeled as a stalker if you reach out in a sincere and clever way.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You don't want to be a stalker, clearly. But if you do it in a genuine way and you have an interest in the work that they're doing, or they talk about my book or talk about things in my book, I know they're genuine. So, you're not going to be labeled as a stalker.
Catriona, who are some of the most interesting or respected people that you've been able to personally meet because of, really being recognized as an expert?
Yeah, I have been able to, just this year I met Michael Dell. I was at a conference with him, which was, I spoke at a conference that he was at, and that was a Dell conference, which was so amazing sitting down and actually chatting with such influential people. Yeah. There's been so many people, but do you know what? What's really is so important for me. It's not so much about those people. Like, obviously, well-known influential people are really interesting because they've become successful in their own right. But it's the everyday people for me that actually really influence my life. It's the people who get off the couch and go, I don't think I can do this, but I'm going to give it a go. Or, my next door neighbor that has, dreadful arthritis, but every day he's like 85, but he gets up and he goes and gets his coffee and does his thing. Or it's the person, one of my staff members who's, might be struggling but getting by. Like, they're the people who actually really, truly inspire me because they're living their lives, and it's they're in their lives, taking action and trying to make the most of their lives. And that is what inspires me the most. It's everybody who just tries to make the most of their lives.
Yeah, that's great. All right. So let's see. How about this? If I'm not a recognized expert yet, and that's certainly something that I'm wanting to achieve in my business, to have clients perhaps seek me out and just to have business run more smoothly. What are some of the simple things that you might suggest that I could do today or this week to become more recognized as an expert in my industry or my field?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first place to start is figuring out what your personal brand is. Mm-hmm. So, and I mean, that can be months of work in itself. But what it is really, 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 it's about why should know you, what you want to be known as an expert in. Because if you don't do that work up front, it's going to make it really difficult to get people to know why they should know you or why they should do business with you. So, and in my book, there's a whole section on this, because it's not just companies having personal brands or brands. Every single person in business needs to do some work around their personal brand. Even if it's just figuring out what their niche is. So, for example, with me, everything I do comes back to public relations and social media. I don't talk about business finance. I don't talk about business marketing. I don't talk about how to, do HR or anything at all. And so what happens is that people immediately associate my name with PR and social media. So that's kind of a really important place to start. The next place to think about is figuring out why you want to do it. So building your role as a recognized difficult. There can be challenges. You're facing a whole bunch of blocks. That first time you get up on stage, you're thinking, oh my God, what am I doing? So you need to have a deeper purpose. So it's not just about, building your business, absolutely. We're doing this all, to build our businesses, but there has to be a deeper reason. And for me, obviously, it's really about sharing expertise and sharing my knowledge to make the world a better place and to help other people grow their businesses. So I think there needs to be a deeper purpose with that. And the next thing to do is really create your personal, have a personal blog or a personal website. So if you're going out there and networking and building your role as an expert, then people can't go find you online, then it's crazy. So you need to, have your own website or have your own blog. So you start really sharing your own messages as well.
Great. Okay, those are some like super amazing foundational things that we can all start like literally this week. And they're so important too.
Today. Yeah.
And there, what I found too is that, once you do spend time finding out, what you want to be known for and the message that you want to speak, and especially when you layer in that deeper purpose of why you're doing something, it really does give you more energy and more confidence about whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. But what it also does, which I found, is that the people who actually have that emotional connection with you, like they get you, they're the people that start coming towards you. Yeah. And they're the people that you want to do business with because they get you, they have this connection with you, and they at some point in their lives they've experienced something that you talked about. Or that there was something in their life that they went, oh my gosh, what she just said or what he just said actually helped me. So I'm going to come towards that person, and they're absolutely going to business lie because they're going to be your fans. They're going to do business with you. They're going to tell all of their friends. They're going to tell all of their colleagues, and that is absolutely how you're going to build your business. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Such a great little bit of advice there. I'm so happy you mentioned that. All right. What's a bit of advice that you would give someone that says, you know what, I think my work just speaks for itself. I really don't want to go out there and toot my own horn too loudly because, I'm a little bit of an introvert. That's really just not my style. So I just want to put my work out there and let it naturally and organically find its way. Yeah.
As I said before, I have a very introverted part of my personality. Mm-hmm. So it's been it's been quite a struggle for me to be able to get to this point, and I've had to actually push through a lot of barriers and blocks around doing this. But really, ultimately, what I realized, it was the first time I spoke. I kept saying no. People were asking me to speak. People were asking me to do media, and I just kept on saying no. No. And I had this realization, a profound realization one day. I was at one of my clients was doing a TV interview, and I was at a TV studio, and I was listening to them tell their story. They were doing some really interesting work, and I was behind the scenes, and I was looking at them, and I thought, at what point in my life did I say that my stories weren't important enough or that my expertise wasn't big enough or good enough? At what point did I make that decision? And so I realized then that I had actually been asked to speak and to share my expertise, but I just kept hearing myself say no. So at that point, I went, you know what? This is a theme and it needs to change. I had to actively make that decision to change it. And so I accepted, almost as soon as that happened, I accepted an opportunity to speak. And it was a massive thing for me because I hate public speaking, hated it. And I went to speak, and I got up on stage, and I was terrified. And then I looked out at the audience, and I realized that being in the spotlight was not about me. It was about the audience. It was about the words that I had to say and how it could impact their lives. And I realized I wanted a voice that would carry across the room into the hearts and the minds of the people, of the audience. And it wasn't about actually me physically standing in the spotlight. It was about what I had to say. So I think that is what people need to realize and recognize, that when we move into this role as recognized experts, in whatever way we want to do it, it's not actually about us. It's about the information and the expertise that we're sharing that is impacting the lives of the people that we're sharing it with.
Great. That's such a key distinction to really soak into your cells, that it's not about you. It's about I often say it's about whatever's bigger than you.
Yeah. It's bigger than you. It's much bigger than you. And do it, for introverts that really don't want to do it, find things that actually work for you. So say, for example, when I first started, I, refused to speak for many years publicly. But what I did is I wrote hundreds and hundreds of articles, because I am a writer. It's what I do. So I wrote my own blog. I have had a blog for 8 years. I've posted on every single week for 8 years. I wrote articles for publications. I guest blogged. So I did what was comfortable for me, but I did it in my own authentic way, sharing my knowledge. And it wasn't until I got to that realization that I was like, you know what, I need to take this to the next level, because I'm allowing this block to impact the growth of my business and the growth of my personal brand. So do whatever, start where it feels right, but the most important thing is start.
Yeah. Perfect. Great. All right, Catriona. This is so good. There's so much impact in just the short few moments that we've shared together here today. I'd like to jump into the lightning round of questions that I ask all of my guests. Are you ready for that?
I'm ready for it. Bring it on.
Okay, sounds good. What's been the most influential book for you?
So I've been thinking about this because I read a lot.
Yeah.
And one of the most profound books is not a business book. It's actually a book called The Cave in the Snow. And it is a book about Tenzin Palmo, who's a Buddhist nun. And I read this book when I was going through that period in my life where I was really thinking about what I wanted my life to be, how I wanted to be in the world, and how I wanted to impact the world. And it was the start of me moving out of the shadows and into the spotlight. And Tenzin Palmo is this extraordinary she was born in the UK, and at 18 realized that she was a Buddhist. I think that her father was like a baker or something like that, never had any this was in 1950s. And she was the first Western woman to be ordained as a Buddhist nun. And then she actually went in and sat in a cave in the Himalayas for 12 years. And 3 of those years in complete isolation. And she nearly died, and I went and heard her speak. So she's extraordinary. And I went and heard her speak when she came out to Australia several years ago. And what she said was that she just really wanted to be in the cave still. She just really wanted to be there. It was, her happy place. It's so hard, but it was where she wanted to be. But she realized that she had this message to tell the world, and she does lots of work around helping Buddhist nuns in India have access to education and learnings and teachings. So she realized that she had to get out of the cave, she had to get some to place and actually go out in the world and share her message, because she had something to say and she wanted to make an impact. So Cave in the Snow, a biography of Tenzin Palmo, is definitely one of my most influential books.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love it when someone mentions a book that I've never heard of.
Yeah.
And that has had a profound impact on their life. Thank you for mentioning that. Okay. What's the best conference or industry event for you?
Yeah. So I went to Social Media Marketing World in San Diego this year, which was good. But we had this really great conference in Australia called Pro Blogger. So it's about 500 professional bloggers that come together once a year. And I actually have met a group of people there that we are now in a mastermind group together. There's 6 of us. So it's kind of like-minded people come together. And it's a conference where, everybody is a blogger, really great guests, speaking. And there's people that actually come from around the world to go to it now as well. So that is really worth thinking about. If you're a professional blogger, it's a really, really fantastic. Darren Rouse is the person who actually organises it, and he's a professional, one of Australia's most well-known professional bloggers.
Great. I heard Darren speak in Portland about a year and a half ago, and he was fantastic.
Did you? Yeah, he's a beautiful man. He's a lovely, he's a very, very heart-centered, generous man. Yeah.
Yes. Great. All right. How about the most effective strategy for growing your business?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say PR and social media because that's what I do. But absolutely, it's, starting with getting out there and creating connections with people. If you're really, really early on in your business, get out there and make as many connections, like genuine connections with people as possible. I know that's the backbone to my business. That's absolutely how I built my business, connection. People. And to this day, I'm still friends with those people I met, 10 years ago. I still get referrals from people who, throughout my network. So I would say if I had to choose one thing, it's go out there, start creating connections and networking with people.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. All right, favorite business tool or resource?
Yeah. Do you know what? I have so many that I use, obviously, because doing social media and PR, there's just a million software. But do you know what? The one thing that I would choose is my iPad. I know that sounds crazy, but without my mini iPad, I would be lost. Like if I leave it at work, I actually get in the car and drive back to the office and get it because I can't be without it. And I travel a lot with my work, and sometimes I don't take my laptop, I just take my iPad because that is my connection to all of my Facebook people, all of my Twitter, all of my emails, my staff, like all of the platform is really what makes my life amazing. So I'd have to choose my iPad mini.
Okay. Apple will love you for that answer.
Yeah.
Okay, and here's my favorite question. What's the most exciting recent adventure or favorite hobby or any combination of those two things for you?
Yeah, this year writing my book and launching my book, in the US and in Australia has been crazy. I've just, it's been the most extraordinary year. I've just met the most amazing people. And, 10 years ago, I would be doing this to happen. I would never have even picked that. But you know what? From a hobby perspective, this has been really, I am an artist as well. So I do sculptural basketry and I surround myself with beautiful art and not snobby art, just this gorgeous art craft sculptural work. And next week I've been nominated as Emerging Artist of the Year. So I'm kind of excited about that, and considering how crazy this year has been, that would be a really nice way of ending the year.
Fantastic. I love it. Okay, great. All right, Catriona, tell us what you're most excited about in your business right now. You've had a busy year already. You've launched your book. What's going on that's most exciting for you now?
I'm so excited about really building Unknown to Expert. So we're launched an online business. So a part of the book is you can get a product called the Acceleration Pack, which is a whole bunch of templates and blogger lists and so many examples of the media releases and the media pitches that I personally have written and done. Okay. So that's our first product. And the next product is going to be some online training, which I'm so excited about doing. And we're going to be launching that early in the new year. Okay. So it's just the beginning of the Unknown to Expert. The book was just the catalyst for actually really reaching out to hopefully thousands and thousands and thousands of people who I can really impact their businesses personally by experience and my expertise and my Unknown to Expert 5-star system. So I'm so excited about that.
Okay, great. All right, well, I'll certainly link that up here in the show notes for episode 48. Unknowntoexpert.com is where all the resources for Catriona's process for becoming an expert, as well as gosh, you've got so much there. There's your blog. There's free. I was on there a little bit earlier today. There's stuff on how to effectively network, give TED Talks, do TV interviews, anything that relates to being an expert out there. You've pretty well got that covered. So
yeah, got it covered.
It's a great site. All right, I'll have all the links to those resources up on the show notes for episode 48 at thestartupsessions.com/48. Great. Catriona, this has been such a delight having
Thank you so much, Michael.
having such an expert with me here on the show today, and all the way from Sydney, Australia.
Yeah.
I think that's
Thank
fantastic.
you so much. It's been lovely.
Yes, it has. All right, thanks very much. I'll see and talk to everyone for another new episode of the Startup Sessions next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Don't you just love that wonderful Australian accent? I guess that's part of the added bonus from today's guest, as if she didn't give us enough value already. I'm so grateful for Catriona sharing her story, because most people think they have to be extroverts to become known for their expertise, and it's simply not true. In fact, I'll argue that introverts that learn how to communicate from their heart are exponentially more impactful than extroverts that are just loud and in your face. And let's be fair, not all extroverts are loud and in your face. Some of the most powerful communicators I know are extroverts. Or are they? Maybe they're just introverts that have learned how to position themselves as an expert. Thanks for listening today. Have an amazing week and live bravely. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to head on over to thestartupsessions.com for a full recap of all our episodes, including links to amazing resources for each guest, thoughtful and provoking blog articles, and many other great resources. Thank you so much for listening and watching. And if today's guest can create a meaningful business and achieve a life of freedom through a business with soul, why can't you?